if we look back, technology is the best thing that's happened to humans, right? If we go back thousands of years, agriculture was the best thing, that happened to us. If we go back 500 years, industrial revolution, our quality of life is 20x better because technology came by. Like, why would AI be any different?
Welcome to the Imagine AI podcast. Today, I have with us a very special guest, Amarpreet Kalkat of Humantic AI. How are you doing?
Pretty good, Chris. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Great. Well, let's first start. What is Humantic AI?
Well, in very simple words, Chris, Humantic AI is nothing but a way to know and understand your customers really, really well. That's really what it is. We go deeper than that. Our core is our behavior prediction AI. That's AI model we've built and fine-tuned over the last 5-6 years. It can understand people, predict their personality and behavior purely based off public data like LinkedIn. And when you start putting that into the hands of salespeople, as you can imagine, you walk into meetings knowing your prospects as if you've known them for years. So that's Humantic AI in a nutshell.
Wait, okay. So that's very interesting. So you're taking publicly available information on customers, and you're using that to get an idea of their personality and potential like buying behaviors?
Absolutely. So the science of that, you'll be surprised to know, has existed for 30, some part, there's two kinds of science we use, but the one part's existed for 30 plus years and one for 15 plus. We've essentially, we stand on the shoulders of that science. We've taken that and productized that, and it can do this quite well. You'll be surprised to see it in action.
Wow. Well, maybe we can see it in action in a little bit later. First, so you're talking about standing on the shoulders of the people that have come before you. Can you talk a little bit about your background and what led into this startup venture?
There's a few interesting things there, and a few not so interesting, I suppose. But first of all, the interesting stuff, AI is popular today, and everyone wants to be an AI and claim to be doing AI. For me, this is my second AI startup. I started working on AI actively in 2014, a little bit, before that too. So in fact, my earlier AI startup was recognized by Forrester as one of the first ever AI-enabled consumer intelligence leaders way back in 2019. It was called Frrole AI. And then 2021, I started Humantic AI. We've had a few kudos for this. At some point, Wall Street Journal said, this is a technology that could reshape the world, literally in as many words. How I got started, I think different entrepreneurs have different stories. Some discover a gap, a problem, and a market opportunity. My case was a little bit of a hammer looking for a nail. Not the best way, by the way. I don't recommend that to many people. You'd rather, find a place where you want to, stick that nail. But it was I believed for a long time that things should be a certain way. I call it intelligent software. That's been sort of my jam, if you will, for a very, very long time. Hey, software needs to become intelligent. It's too dumb. My friends still joke around, from my B school 20 years ago. In 2010, I'd been working at a bunch of companies. I was at my third company. I'd worked at Nokia, Trilogy, HP. And I was like, I'm still not building what I wanted to build. So I was a build guy, essentially. And at some point I said, you know what, this is not happening at big companies. I'm just going to go and do it on my own. So that became my first startup, a couple of years later, Frrole AI. And that led to Humantic AI, where we said, okay, we can understand people and their behavior really, really well. What if we could use it to help people simply understand each other better, right? Because that's on the internet, that's a big, big gap if you see theoretically, right? We just don't need to understand each other and we just go for each other's throats. What if you could understand each other? So that was the driver.
Yeah. Okay. So interesting. And are you based in Silicon Valley, I saw?
Yeah, I'm in the Bay Area right now in East Bay, but I split my time between Bay Area and Bangalore. So, our team's based out of India. So, I do 50-50 in the Bay Area right now.
Oh, great. So getting back to the product, what is a, use case, the ideal customer of Humantic AI and the use cases? Let's start with the ideal customer.
So I can tell you both. Let us say you're this salesperson, right? A big deal salesperson, not a, I sell something worth 1,000 rupees or $1,000, not that. But, larger deals, maybe in SaaS, it could be $100,000 ACV deal, and traditional software, it could be $1 million or $5 million deal. So not super big, but big enough. Now, let us say you have this big deal coming up, right? A big opportunity. I'm going to come and sell something to Chris Madden. And I'm like, man, I got to crack this deal. And then I find out, oh, I know Harry and Chris worked together for a while. So what I'm going to do at that point, I'll pick up the phone to Harry and say, right, hey, Harry, Chris, I've got a big deal coming up with him tomorrow. I don't want to mess this up. Yeah, can you tell me? Just tell me. Tell me what exactly gets Chris excited. That's quite possibly what you're going to do, right? If you've got something meaningful enough at stake. I suppose we've all done that at some point in our life, right?
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah, definitely.
That's humantic AI. So it's that, we say it's a friend without really needing to have a friend, because our core is a behavior personality prediction engine. So it'll tell me how you think, what matters to you, what scares you, what excites you. Like there's something called DISC profile, which is very popular in the enterprise world. It's called DISC personality profile. Most major sales training companies train you on that. Most major sales gurus, Tony Robbins will train you on that. Ray Dalio talks about that. McKinsey trains people on that. Vista Equity Partners. It's a big thing in the enterprise sales world. So that is, we can predict people's DISC profile before us. It used to take an assessment test before us. There's a couple other companies that do it too. But that is our core. Hence, back to your question, for us, ideal customer profile is typically a large ticket seller. We focus on technology segment, not on SaaS as much, slightly bigger, companies that sell bigger deals. So technology services beyond SaaS. These would usually be companies in the lower end 500 people, upward and 5,000 to 10,000 people. So mid-market to smaller enterprise, if you will, not super large enterprise. Super large enterprise actually works very well, but our sales cycles are too slow and we're still a younger company, still in the early days in many ways. So that is our ideal customer, a big ticket seller at, these companies, essentially someone who works on larger ticket deals and is really, really keen to get to know the people on the other side of the table. Because it's not just a tactical deal where you walk in and give the price and the deal is done. It is a lot more than that.
So it's going to help with sales and helping to understand who you're talking with and give you kind of like a portfolio brief on that person. Is that the core product then? Are there other things that you're thinking of offering or expanding into?
That is the core technology, you could say. Is it the core product? No. Product-wise, that's probably 25% of the product now. But now that you've got this deep insight into a customer, imagine the things you can do with it. For example, ChatGPT is here, right? Hell, LLMs are here, Gen AI is here. Everyone is trying to use Gen AI to write emails and messages and whatnot. Now, when you use ChatGPT to say, hey, ChatGPT, write an email to Chris Madden and, pitch him ABC. We all know, right? It's a fairly robotic, you could almost recognize that this is a ChatGPT written email, right? Mm-hmm. Then there's a bunch of tools coming through, and quite a few of them. It's very easy to build these tools. That'll maybe, again, take your Twitter profile, your LinkedIn profile, and use that to write a slightly personalized message to use. Hey, Chris, I saw that, you've been running Madden AI for a while, etc. Something. And then we come in. We know not just that. We do, of course, like others. But we even know what matters to you, what language matters to you. We even know if an email to you should start with, hi, Chris, hey, Chris, just Chris, dear Chris. We know that can make a 15% difference, right? There's data on that. We know whether, you are someone to whom a short subject line matters, longer one, should it be written with exciting 3 exclamation marks, right? In your case, for example, none of these are the right things. I've seen your humantic AI profile. You are someone who you tend to review things with a fine lens. We've only spoken for 5 minutes, right? I already know these things about you. If I come into the pitch with you and talk big, saying, Chris, with the best things in sliced bread, no one's like us, you will sit there and say, oh, this Amarpreet guy? No, I don't trust him. He's just giving me some BS. So, but there are people to whom that's exactly the right way. So that's what starts happening. You can bring, people talk about humanizing AI, right? And that's a little bit of what starts happening, because now I can talk to Chris separately compared to John or Jane or A or B or C, because I'm treating everyone like a unique individual, not just going to throw the same message, ChatGPT generated email at everyone. So that's the second part that we get into. That's a big component, the whole personalization suite, as I call it, or generative AI suite. Then there's a little bit more as well, but let me pause there.
Yeah, so very interesting. So I have to ask, so did you run a humantic AI?
Yeah, before I never walk into any meeting without checking people's profile. I always take a look. It takes 30 seconds, and that's the beauty, right? It fundamentally makes it a better conversation.
Yeah, where it's like I'd love it as a podcaster, to be frank, because I'm kind of going into. I looked at your LinkedIn, I looked at the company briefly, but to get like a summarized thing of it, and then to get to know you, the things that you value, your goals and your communication styles, you feel almost like you'd have an upper hand. Well, for one thing, you feel like you know the person better, but then you feel like you have an upper hand going into a conversation or a negotiation or into a sales pitch.
It's both things if you think for a moment. I mean, yes, you could see it that way. It's a perspective. See, the perspective we have is that if I am choosing to use Humantic AI, so we basically call it buyer intelligence. It's intelligence about your buyers. If you're choosing to use it, what are you saying? You're saying, I care about my buyer enough to get to know them, to see what matters to them, not just go and give them my spiel, right? Whatever I have to say, what I usually say, but give them what they are looking for, give them the way that they are looking for, right? So not give them my words, give them their words in many ways. So you are putting buyer, the focus on the buyer. So we call it becoming a buyer first seller. That's when I spend a minute trying to learn about you, your LinkedIn profile, and then Humantic profile. I'm actually coming in saying, okay, Chris is like this. If I do this, that is not a great thing. Now, yes, it of course gives me an advantage, which is what I want as a seller, but it also gives you the confidence to say, this person looks like someone who understands me. Like Gartner has a data point. It says that when people feel that the seller understands them, those deals close 30% more, 30% more. They feel that other person understands them. Logic is one thing, but we are human at the very end. We can justify rationally as much as we like. We make emotional decisions. And in big deal selling, there's a very popular saying. It's very simple. It goes, people like people who sound similar to them. People trust people that they like, and people buy from people that they trust. So you don't buy anything important enough from someone you don't trust. That is true. And you never like someone, or you never trust someone that you don't like. When was the last person you disliked? You started trusting, but never ever. Yeah, we don't trust people that we dislike who sound very different than us. So it is a little bit of an edge, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think of, it doesn't matter what you say, it matters how you make somebody feel.
Exactly. It is about how you make them feel. Yes. All the actors know that, the big leaders, speakers. See, what people carry away from anything is a feeling. They forget the arguments that were made. Feelings are what you carry away, saying, oh, that was really nice. Yes.
I feel like using Humantic AI, like that's something I wouldn't want to tell the prospective buyer, that, did a little AI bio search on you beforehand. And I feel like as a society, we're not really at that point yet where understanding that AI is being used in everything. But for example, like social media, like that's my game. And I still write my own tweets, even though I might have AI give me ideas and help me with copy for YouTube or something. But like the tweets that are coming from Chris Madden are still my tweets for the large part. But the people that, you get people that are bragging about, using AI to write their tweets, but then it's like, oh, it feels like cheating or something. It feels like not very authentic. I wonder your thoughts or comments on that.
See, there's something called liability of newness. We all carry the liability of newness. Anything that is new, it feels alien, strange. Our default on that, a vast majority of the people, is going to be a no. It's just how it is. That is exactly what the liability of newness is. So you have to think about things at two levels. One is at a fundamental level. At a fundamental level, is it okay to tell a prospect today, hey, I saw your LinkedIn profile before meeting you? Well, it is more than okay, because if you don't do that, it's uncourteous, because it means you don't care, right? You've not made an effort to learn about them.
Yeah, the background.
So why is an AI-generated assisted insight hence a problem? It is not. Conceptually, it is not a problem, because you are actually now saying, look, I value you so much that I actually paid money to get to know you better. So that's a conceptual view. The second part is what is acceptable, right? And that takes a little bit of time. Generally, we've all heard of, I think, the big chasm, or I'm not getting the term, but the big chasm or something. There's the early adopters, 10, 20%. Then there are the fast followers. Then there are, the slow adopters, and then the laggards, right? And sometimes that gap can be too large. So that is what happens with every new technology. I'll tell you something, couple of interesting things. Do you know that when electricity came, right? Electricity, we think it is a revolution. People actually had arguments against electricity. When aeroplanes came for 4 years. 4 years after aeroplane flew, it was almost dismissed. It took 4 years before it was actually noticed. So that's a natural human reaction to something new. Right now, we're seeing that with AI. So many people are up in arms against AI. If we look back, technology is the best thing that's happened to humans, right? If we go back thousands of years, agriculture was the best thing, that happened to us. If we go back 500 years, industrial revolution, our quality of life is 20x better because technology came by. Like, why would AI be any different? It's more about we take time to adjust to, something new. So that is the fundamental difference. But conceptually, yes, one thing I would say though, problem with technology generally and powerful technology is it can be used for good. It can be used for, evil, not good. How we use technology is the key. From nuclear energy to wherever you want to go, that is very important how we use it. If I use, for example, Humantic AI to manipulate you, that's a bad use case. And it could be used, right? We have to, as builders of technology and as users both, we have to play a role. Government comes in too, right, at some point of time. But if we put it to good use, right, it is in some ways, if you think, back in the day, we would say, oh, everyone knew everyone in your neighborhood and whatnot. In some ways, it's a little bit like going back to knowing people better. So that's the most important thing. I'll pause there. How do we put technology to use? We can make anything out of it. We can make it the best thing and we can make it the worst thing.
Very well said. A few thoughts there. This technology is going to, especially AI, it's going to level the playing field for so many people. And it's ultimately like this educational force that if you allow it, it's something that you can learn from constantly. And, with, you mentioned plane traveling there, air traffic and how it wasn't accepted at first. And it was also it was a luxury for the rich, like to be able to fly somewhere. It was something that vast majority of people couldn't afford. And now, 100 years later, since the advent of planes, it's something like many people can afford a plane ride somewhere. And a lot of people are flying around like
Absolutely.
kings, And
yeah.
And so AI is it's this democratizing, leveling force. So Humantic AI, I mean, you still, like you mentioned, that it is almost uncourteous to like not do a little bit of background check on, get to know the person you're about to talk to by looking at their LinkedIn. And so that takes time. And I think it's putting in that time that's kind of like, oh, that's the courteous part, is like you put in the time to get to know somebody before meeting them. And so your service is kind of just cutting out the time aspect of it. I mean, that's a good thing. And the person still needs to read the review of whatever Humantic AI is put out. So can you talk about what that person, what does it look like? I mean, is it a paragraph? Is it a couple, is it broken down into several segments? What is the product that you're viewing when you do essentially a background check on somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I can pull it up and, actually show you the, basics of it, but otherwise.
Explain it briefly and then let's I'd love to take a look at it.
Yeah, so absolutely. It is pretty much all the things you said. It's essentially a profile, that we build up. There's an overview about you as a person that explains about you. And then because we're talking about salespeople here, there are insights about specific steps in the sales process. So for example, it will give you insights about how to have that first conversation with you, a cold conversation, how to write an email to you, how to negotiate more effectively with you, what to expect, whether you are a slow mover, fast mover, how can you set your expectations? So it has insights tied to every step, because we don't realize that's the weird thing about humans. Now, we are very, very alike and very predictable almost in many ways. We think we are very unique, and we are, there's a uniqueness, but at the very core, right, as we learn about, even scientifically, I mean, we share so much with creatures and animals that are so different. So a lot of about us is very actually predictable, surprisingly enough. There's, of course, a unique twist to it. And with technology where it is, there's now enough data. 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, it wasn't there, but in the last 10 years, because we all have so much data available, we can do that prediction. So now we can make it that specific, because now every step, in this case, salespeople, you can say, okay, what is Humantic AI advising me to do? Like we see customers who come and say, hey, I was going into this closing meeting and Humantic AI said, this person is very, very driven by stories and anecdotes. So I actually sent them 2 case studies up front, and then I went in and I played the video of a customer and I told them this story, and boom, right? Whereas there is another customer out there for whom this is literally the wrongest in with this thing that you could be doing, right? And where you need to go in, you need to start by saying, look, I know I have a new technology, Chris. I know you're someone who really likes to go deep. I know you're someone who has a lot of questions and you take a while to make up your mind. Don't worry, Chris. I'm not here to rush you into a decision. I'm here to help you make the right decision for your company. And you'll sit there and say, man, this guy gets me, right? He's not a usual salesperson, a hustler. So guess who's the winner? Both of us, right? Because if I have a good product for you, I increase my odds of winning. You increase of your odds of getting results from that product. And we both have a rich, healthy interaction where we feel, oh, I'm interacting with someone, professional, someone courteous, respectful. I'm not interacting with a sleazy salesperson who's just trying to stick the deal to me and then wants to get out of it.
Do you have a background in sales by chance?
At this point, you could say yes.
Yeah.
I already know at heart, I'm really a builder, right? I'm an engineer turned product manager. My first startup, like I said, my investors would keep telling me, they'll say, Amarpreet, if you could sell as well as you build, this will be $1 billion company. And at some point I said, you know what? Fine, I'm a builder, but I'll learn how to sell. How hard can that be? So I would say I became a student of selling around 5 years ago, and I've learned a thing or two, the last 5-6 years now.
Nice. Yeah. And well, certainly as a CEO and founder, you've got to get that, have the salesmanship part of it. I'm very curious. So you said that you ran a Humantic profile on me. Can we look at that now?
Let's look at that. But I'll tell you right away that there's a 7%, odds of you saying this is not me are a bit higher than usual, So now that I've interacted with you for 30 odd minutes, it's not enough time, but I would still say it's
well, it's still very curious. I can let you know. So I think you should be able to share the screen here. Yeah.
Like I said, I don't expect you to be easily convinced. It literally says in as many words that you're not convinced easily. And this is you as a buyer. Remember, this is not you as a person necessarily. You as a buyer, it's a perspective, right? You would be cautious. You would be systematic. So if you were buying something, you'll ask for pricing, etc., So you will adopt things a little bit slowly than others, right? It's a relative world. So what do you think?
I think that's certainly true to my past history. In the last 3 years with podcasting and this new profession, I used to be an English teacher. I'm definitely trying to adapt things, be quicker to adapt things. But I certainly am risk averse when it comes to making
thoughtful
decisions.
Buyer, thoughtful buyer. Yeah, I mean that's this is written from a seller's perspective, because we want to make it clear to them, what it is.
Oh, sure. So it's being written for the person that's going to interact with me, and to better make a sale. Okay, so can I read this out loud? This is very fascinating for me. Insights for selling to Chris. During a call or a meeting, if you have a lower price product compared to the competition, call out the same. Emphasize more on facts and measurable benefits. Tell them that you will come back if you don't have a good answer for a question. Don't. Avoid phrases like do not worry about, no one compares to. Avoid rushing them. Be polite and patient. Don't overhype the product pitch. Keep it measured. Cool. While negotiating and closing, the secret to closing fast with Chris is ensuring that the product delivers ROI, cost-effective pricing, and process compliance are very important to them. Will you ever get a clear answer from Chris? Ooh, it doesn't come naturally to them, but they can say no if they are not convinced. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I do like keeping things kind of open, and I don't give a clear yes or no a lot of times.
I mean, imagine if if I knew it before I've spent even a minute with you, right? There's a good bit more. I don't know if you want to read. I'll send it over to you. You can take a look.
Yeah, no, please do.
Yeah.
So you've got the disc profile. You've got insights for deal planning. What was the higher section there?
It's a different sections. Writing an email, when making a call. Calling. Yeah, how to do it?
Well, so it really kind of gives a silver platter to the salesperson. Like here's some templates you can use, so they don't have to go in there feeling cold and just like writing, a social media post with AI that I talked about previously. It's like this tool that you can draw from. Okay, so the information that was scraped from, it's like my LinkedIn. Is it
it's your
other
LinkedIn? That's
places
it.
too?
Just LinkedIn. LinkedIn. Because we're trying to keep it to professional data. Stay away from personal data. Just your professional data, just the LinkedIn. That's all.
Cool. So I suppose it matters how much one uses LinkedIn and how much data they've provided.
Well, technically, what you said is right. It matters. But practically, if you're thinking it needs a lot of data, no, it doesn't need a lot of data. So that's one misconception people have with AI. Let me clarify. AI needs a lot of, well, generally needs a lot of training data. It doesn't necessarily need a lot of data to predict. So even training, now the needs going down because the models are becoming more powerful. There are techniques like, what's called one-shot learning, few-shot learning. You can learn backwards from one example. So there's a lot of new techniques coming into machine learning, but generally training needs more data. Prediction actually, reasonably good predictions can be done with much less data. So no, we don't need a lot of data or an active profile, but we do need some, yes.
Can you talk about, there's a lot of news and announcements with all these different LLMs. OpenAI just released ChatGPT 4.0. Pretty incredible translation capabilities. I was testing it out with my South Korean wife the other day. She was speaking Korean only. I was speaking English only. And it just is this great translator, and the latency is very low and it's pretty incredible. And I'm wondering, what is your technology based on, and like what's stopping, OpenAI from doing something similar? Or if you can just talk about the base of your technology.
First of all, the base of our technology, like I said, there are two fields of science. One is called psycholinguistics, where we look at language patterns to understand you. And the second is called computational psychometrics, which is where we look at objectively measurable non-linguistic signals. In plain English, things like, on LinkedIn, did you give people a lot of recommendations or not, right? It's one signal out of hundreds of signals. And when you combine everything, all the small signals add up. So that's what we are based on. We've actually, for the audience here, listeners, if you go to our website, we've got a white paper. We're fairly transparent about how we do things, and it'll explain the mumbo jumbo that I just started, computational psychometrics and whatnot. Can OpenAI, the other question, that's an interesting question always. Can OpenAI do it? Can someone do it? Now, see, let's keep in mind, and like I said, I've been doing AI for some time, so hopefully, I know a thing or two. I'm not a complete fool. OpenAI has a very generic, very powerful model. LLMs, in general, Anthropic. Everyone, essentially, foundational LLMs are very powerful models, very generic models. Those two words are important, words. Hence, they can do a lot of things well enough. But if you want them to do anything very well, that is going to be a massive piece of work. That's where, for example, fine-tuning is coming in. That's where, RAG is coming in. And because you need to train them further, you have to get into specialized use cases. It's like saying in 1999, 2000, I've got a website, I can do everything. Well, you could do everything, but at the end of the day, people end up, building websites for different things, right? Different focus completely. Very few websites are completely generic. Amazon is very, very generic, and even that is limited to just shopping, right? At the end of the day. So that's the big thing. Yes, can be done. One, you'll really need to go deep if you want to do a good job, which is important typically. Second, it's not just about the model capabilities. It's also about how well that can be leveraged. Like, take us, we are a salesperson specific tool. If we just built this whole thing and gave it to people and said, come to our website, our app and do it, our usage would be 1/5 of what it is today. What did we do? We integrated into every tool that salespeople use today. Salesforce, Salesloft, Outreach, HubSpot, Gmail, Outlook, dozen tools. So the power of our models, the ability to know you, the ability to write a personalized message, it becomes available where you are. So those two pieces are very, very important with AI. One is fitting into users' flow of work. That takes a lot of work. And second, and if you see that way, theoretically, Salesforce could have built every sales tool, right? Why do multi-billion-dollar companies still exist when Salesforce, which is a huge gorilla, has been around for 20, 25 years now? So those two things ensure that there is a lot that other startups can do, and the bigger companies or the foundational models will not take everything away from them.
So I'm looking at your pricing page right now, and it definitely seems reasonable. And I see the angle you're going at for, it's not just a one person checking this out. It's 4 teams. It's 4 sales teams that already exist in your minimum package is like 5 users minimum. So up to 20 users, 5 to 20 users, 180.
That's a starting point. You could have hundreds of users, absolutely, but that's the starting point. Yeah.
So it's nice for these sales teams to be able to just sign up for your product, and then your product is integrated into all these places that they already are, and they can quickly pull up, this info on the people they're talking with, trying to sell to. Is there anything else you want to say on that to potential sales teams of why they should use your product?
Yeah, I think we've covered the point, but a couple of things I'd like to add, I think, and you brought pricing up, so maybe I'll add that too. See, on pricing, 80% plus of our revenue comes from companies. It's not individuals, but we have a fairly, democratizing sort of a mindset generally we work with. So that's where we try to make it very, very affordable. You can start off as an individual, although that's a very small part of our revenue. We can very well just not have it. So that's just a mindset thing and that carries over to everything that we build. Saying, hey, let's use technology for good. Let's democratize access, usability, impact, etc. That's number one. Number two, if you're a salesperson, founder, a marketer, essentially anyone who sells in some way listening to it, one, if you've not heard of us, odds are you might have, but we are one of the most popular sales AI solutions right now. And globally, we are a top 10. If you go to G2 on sales AI, we are top 10. In North America, we're actually number 2 in North America mid-market, and only Salesforce is ahead of us. So we are that powerful. Our impact on results is very, very significant as well. But if you ask me, Amarpreet, what's the first reason I should consider your product or even buy your product? I wouldn't say it's just the results. Yes, the results, but I have come to learn, right, as a student of selling, and I've become a decent seller, I would say, that if you genuinely start putting your buyers first, if you care about your buyers, if you're ready to tell them when you're not the right solution, when you're not the right person, when you develop that mindset, that is when you do your best. Like, none of the top salespeople in the world have been just trying to get the deal done, right? They're genuinely going deeper. At that point, only two things matter, I believe. First is what I call the need of the organization. It's very important. If there's no need that someone has for you, but that's largely at an org level. Second is the want of the buyer. So need of the company and the want of the buyer. If you have one, well, very good for you. If you have both, that's when you've cracked it. And that's where you should consider Humantic AI. We are not about the need of the company. We are about the want of the buyer. You combine both, and now you are absolutely in the strongest possible position to help your buyers. But that mindset about being an authentic seller, I think, is very important, which we try to reinforce through our product.
Could you talk a little bit about your team? Are you venture backed? Where you are in the fundraising cycle?
Yeah, I can. We're a team of around 20 people right now, based in India and US. Our customers are 75 to 80% in US. Mostly B2B organizations, technology, but beyond technology too. In terms of where we are, so we funded, angel funded company. We've raised a couple of $1 million so far from largely a fairly well-known Silicon Valley investors. If you go to our website, you'll probably recognize quite a few names over there. So we've not raised any venture money at this point of time. We probably will do at some point of time. But otherwise, we are angel funded startup, yes.
20 people. Do you have a co-founder?
No, I'm a single founder. So I was the idiot, who ended up doing it all by himself.
What's been the hardest part of that journey?
Everything's been hard, man. Yeah. It's one of the hardest things that you could do. But see, when you have a goal and so you're driven by something. Like in my case, it was, hey, this is what things should be. Then rest starts becoming easier. Of course, you have to have a strong, supportive family. I'm lucky there. You have to have, good people to work with. I would say I'm lucky there too. But yes, it's a hard journey, especially when you're trying to do a category creation kind of a thing, right? It's a new thing. People don't even know that this is possible.
I'm pretty blown away by the tech, for sure. And the use case is very evident. I always love products where it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense that would be beneficial. You mentioned your family there. Do you have kids?
Yeah, we have a daughter, 10 years old daughter. Yeah.
How are you framing AI for her as you raise her?
See, like I said, I'm a technology optimist, right? I do believe we have to act responsibly. Someone was to ask me, I would say, people say, should government intervene or intervene? I think government should play a role. There is a role to be played. So generally, I think technology, what it can do, nothing else can do what technology can do. So it's literally the fastest way forward, for us to evolve and progress, right? As a planet, as people, we have to do it thoughtfully, right? We have to do it carefully. So that's essentially what I tell her, and that's what I would tell anyone listening here or anyone who wants to go talk to their kids, that we should adopt technology with an open mind. We should be thoughtful and careful. most importantly, we should act responsibly. I'm a capitalist in that sense, building a company, but I do think most companies they just too money driven. That's a root cause of a lot of problems. We need to take a more responsible attitude. It's not just about money. Money is important, but it should not be just about money. Companies need to do better there. And as people, we need to progress, but thoughtfully. Even if it's a little slow, that's okay.
Well, I think you chose a very good name for your company then, Humantic AI, and focusing on the humanity.
It actually comes from there. Our goal was to humanize AI. That's what we said our mission was, to humanize AI. That's why that name Humantic AI, right? So we said, okay, it's a human. Let's make AI more humane in that sense. So that's the thought process. Hopefully we'll live up to that. We definitely good at keeping our end of the promise. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, Amarpreet, it was a pleasure talking with you and getting to know your product better. And it was very stunning for me to read the psychoanalysis of how to sell to me better.
I'll send it over to you. Over to you. Yes, absolutely. Yes. So go ahead, give it a try too. We should set you up with just a access or something when you meet your future guests.
I think you could just there we go. That'd be very interesting.
Blow them away with we'll do that. Yeah, Chris. All right.
Awesome.
It's been a pleasure, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Same here. Thank you for joining. All right. Bye-bye.
Absolutely.